Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, whether you're an ACCA SBL candidate gearing up for your exam, or you just want to play pretend for a minute, I want you to step into the corner office. Imagine you're the newly appointed CEO. The ink on your contract, barely dry. And you're already staring down this massive, company-defining strategic hurdle. You've got to turn this ship around, and honestly, you need to do it fast. So, here's the core problem you're facing. You've done the math, right? You've got the perfect, absolutely airtight plan. The financial projections are flawless, the market analysis is totally spot on. But there's a glaring issue. Your staff just isn't buying it. When you try to actually push the plan forward, it feels like wading through thick molasses. So why is it that the most brilliant, perfectly logical strategies fail so spectacularly in the real world?
Well, that brings us to this absolute classic business truth. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. It literally doesn't matter how brilliant your spreadsheet is. If you don't understand the underlying culture, your plan is going to fail. Period. The people, their everyday habits, the established norms, they're the invisible enemy standing directly in the way of your big organizational transformation. If you don't tackle this invisible enemy first, your strategy is basically doomed before it even gets off the ground.
All right, let's look at the agenda. We've got a clear, structured playbook to turn theory into boardroom survival tactics. We're going to start with the invisible enemy, then move to decoding the web, choosing your leadership style, looking at Kotter's blueprint, and finally, making the change last. Let's dive in. Section 1. The invisible enemy. Understanding resistance to change. Before we can cure the disease, we've got to diagnose the exact illness that's fighting off your brilliant new strategy.
So what you're really facing here is resistance, and it comes in two distinct flavors. Being able to tell these apart is absolutely crucial, especially if you're sitting for the SBL exam. You've got to separate the messy human emotion from the structural flaws. On the individual side, it's deeply personal. Your employees are feeling a very real fear of the unknown. They're worried about losing their status or maybe just having to break comfortable daily habits. Then on the organizational side, you've got structural inertia, group norms, the collective threat to established expertise. Think of these two forces working together like an immune system, aggressively fighting off an organ transplant. They aren't trying to be difficult, they're just trying to protect the organism.
Section 2. Decoding the web, the invisible operating system. So we know the resistance is there, but where exactly does it live and breathe? Well, it lives right here, in what Johnson and Schulz call the cultural web. Think of this as the invisible, underlying operating system of the entire company. It's made up of the stories people whisper in the break room, the symbols of status, hidden power structures, formal control systems, and all those daily rituals and routines. If you want to actually change the company, you can't just send out a new strategy document. You have to literally reprogram this entire web from the ground up.
Now, what's really interesting is how outdated symbols can completely derail a modern transformation. Take a look at the toxic culture side. The stories are all, well, we've always done it this way. The symbols, giant corner offices for the bosses. The rituals, mandated monthly pizza parties instead of, actual bonuses or meaningful recognition. That kind of stuff is incredibly resistant to change. So if you're trying to roll out a massive digital transformation, but you keep the corner offices and the forced pizza parties, the agile culture on the right, which is all about forward thinking and true collaboration, it's never going to take root. The old web will just reject the new software.
Section 3. Choosing your leadership style, your strategic arsenal. As the change leader, you need the right tools to combat that toxic web. Your first option? Autocratic leadership. This is where you call all the shots, alone. Now, actually, in an absolute crisis, like if the ship is actively sinking, this is highly effective. But during normal times, look at this cautionary example. Imagine a tech startup CEO holding a 3-hour daily meeting where only she is allowed to speak. Yeah, no way. That is a surefire way to kill creativity and completely tank morale. It ignores input and totally destroys the fast-paced collaboration that tech firms desperately need. Alternatively, you've got democratic leadership. This is where you actively invite your employees to participate in the decisions. Now, sure, the decision-making process is definitely going to take longer, but shifting to this style empowers your team. Because fundamentally, people support what they help create, right? By giving them a voice, you start to untangle those stubborn organizational habits and generate genuine buy-in, rather than just forced compliance.
And then we have transformational leadership. This is kind of the ultimate weapon for profound organizational change. And frankly, this is exactly what you should aspire to be as that newly appointed CEO.
Instead of dictating terms, a transformational leader sets an incredibly powerful, compelling vision and then empowers the entire team to achieve it. You aren't just managing tasks here, you're an inspirer, pulling the organization out of its structural rut and into a brand new agile reality. But here's the catch, and this is a crucial takeaway for both your exam and real-world survival: contextual leadership. One style just doesn't fit all. If you're stuck in autocratic mode during a period of stable growth, you're going to fail. If you try to hold a completely democratic vote while the building is literally on fire, well, the building's going to burn down. A true change leader fluidly shifts styles based on the specific context and the crisis right in front of them. Section 4, Kotter's Blueprint, the map to victory. We've got our leadership style selected. Now we need a practical step-by-step rehabilitation plan to actually execute this turnaround. Enter phase 1 of Kotter's 8 steps. You absolutely cannot skip these. First up, create urgency. People need to know why the status quo is dangerous. But, and a lot of leaders mess this up, don't confuse urgency with anxiety. You want driven action, not total panic. Step 2, form a powerful coalition of allies across the company. Step 3, create a clear, sensible vision. And step 4, over-communicate that vision. A classic mistake is a company rolling out new software and management being shocked when staff resist. Why did they resist? Because management skipped steps 1 and 4. Failing to clearly communicate the why causes instant, paralyzing individual resistance. Okay, once that vision is communicated, you've got to move fast. Phase 2 requires intense momentum. Step 5, empower broad-based action. Get those obstacles out of your team's way. Step 6, generate short-term wins. You desperately need quick, visible victories to show the skeptics that, hey, this plan is actually working. Step 7, consolidate those gains and use that momentum to push for even more change. And finally, step 8, anchor the change in the culture. That word is vital. Anchor it. If you don't lock these new behaviors back into a new cultural web, all your hard work is going to unravel, and people will just slide right back into their comfortable old habits. Finally, Section 5, making the change last, from exam to boardroom. Listen closely to this part, because this is the golden insider rule for both the ACCA SBL exam and your actual career survival. You have to apply these models directly to specific facts. Generic textbook answers, they get 0 marks on the exam, and frankly, they'll get you fired in the real world. Just casually naming the cultural web or listing Kotter's steps is completely useless. The real value is in diagnosing the specific scenario facts, like spotting that those corner offices are toxic symbols of hierarchy, or realizing that mandatory pizza parties are just a failed ritual masking a broken culture. You've got to link the theory directly to the living, breathing problem right in front of you. So, we've diagnosed the resistance, we've decoded the cultural web, we picked out your leadership tools, and mapped out Kotter's steps for execution. The playbook is firmly in your hands, the strategy is set, and you know exactly which invisible enemies to watch out for. So the only question left to ask yourself is, are you ready to lead?